about division, and the model I'm going to show you today is the area model. We're going to do the same problem, 435 divided by 3, two different ways. The first way is we're going to draw it out like we're using our base 10 blocks. So I break up my number into the hundreds, the tens, and the ones. So here's my 400. I have 3 tens for my 30. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little tiny circles for my ones, for my 5 ones. The first thing I want to think about is I have my 400 right here. Well, I know that if I group it into a set of 3, because I know that 3 times 100, 3 times 100 is 300. And I know that 300 can go into 400. But I have this 100 all by itself. I can't group it into a group of 3 because it's hanging out by itself. So what I do with that is I take that and I bring it on over to my tens. And when I bring it on over to my tens, I break that up into 10 tens, because 10 tens equals 100. So I'm going to add 10 more tens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now I have 13 tens. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with my hundreds, which is I'm going to start grouping them into groups of 3. So I have one group of 3, one group of 3, another group of 3, and then one last group of 3. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal groups of 3. And these are tens, so it's 40. And I have this one all by itself. So again, I need to regroup. I need to bring it on over into my ones and break it into 10 ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And with the ones, I'm going to do the same thing that I've been doing with everything else and grouping them into groups of 3. So I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I have nothing left over, so I don't have a remainder. But I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of 3. So I'm going to put my 5 up here. And now to get my answer, I'm just adding the numbers up on top. 100 plus 40 plus 5 gives me 145. So 435 divided by 3 is 145. We're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to do it with numbers. So again, I'm going to break up my 435, and I'm going to break it up into my hundreds, my tens, and my ones. So I have 400 here, I have 30, and I have 5. Okay? I know that, again, 3 times 100 is going to give me 300. So I'm going to put 100 up here, and I'm going to put my 300 here, and I'm going to subtract 400 minus 300. 400 minus 300 gives me 100, and I'm going to bring that 100 all the way over to my 30. And 100 plus 30 is going to change that 30 into 130. 130 is a big number. But I do know that if I count by threes, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, that's a little bit too high. I know that 3 times 4 is 12. So that means 3 times 40 is 120. So again, I subtract. 130 minus 120 is 10. And I'm going to move that 10 on over to add it to my 5. 10 plus 5 is 15, so that changes to a 15. And I easily know that 3 times 5 gives me 15. I subtract and I get a 0. The big thing you want to focus on is the first step we do is divide. The first thing I did on each of these was divide. I wanted to know how many times 3 could go into 400 evenly. Okay? The second thing I do is I multiply. I'm going to multiply my 3 by whatever number is up on top. So 3 times 100 is 300. 3 times 100 is 300. My next step is I subtract. So if you see here, I took away my 300. Here, I took away 300. So I subtracted. My next step is we say bring it on down, which means I bring it down and make sure I have everything ready. All my zeros, everything. So I'm left with this 100. And the last step we say is bring it on back. So I'm taking that 100, I'm bringing it on back to the next area so that I can redo that whole process all over again. We're going to do the same area model, but this time we're going to do it with a different number. So this time we are going to do, again, the same area model, but we're going to do it with a different equation. This equation is 1,543 divided by 3. So I have 1,543, and I'm going to divide that by 3. So again, I have to make my big rectangle and my 3 on the outside. And my rectangle this time is going to be broken up into 4 groups because I have 1,000 right here. I have 500 right there, 40, and then my 3. Okay? And so now I'm going to divide. My first step is divide. I'm thinking, how many times can 3 go into 1,000? Well, that's such a huge number. So I'm just going to focus on 3 going into 10. That's what I'm going to focus on. I know 3, 6, 9. That's as close to 10 as I'm going to get without going over because my next number would be 12. So I'm going 3, 6, 9. So I know that 3 times 3 gives me 9. So that means that 3 times 300 is going to give me 900. Okay? So I divided. Then I just multiplied. 3 times 300 is 900. My third step is to subtract. So I'm going to take my 1,000. I'm going to subtract my 900. And I get 100. Everything's brought down. I'm now going to bring it on over and restart. So my 100 is going to move on over to this 500. 100 and 500 together is 600. So now I'm going to divide again. 3 goes into 600. 600 is such a big number. I do know that 3 goes into 6. 3 goes into 6 2 times. So that means that 3 goes into 600 200 times because I can just add my 2 zeros. 3 times 2 is 6. You add your 2 zeros, you get that 600. Okay? So 600 minus 600 is 0. There is nothing more to bring down. There's nothing more to add over here to the 40. And so I still have to start the process all over again because I have a 40 and a 3 that I have to deal with. So instead of moving my 0 all the way over, I'm just going to focus on 3 going into 40. I know that 3 goes into 4 one time. And if we're going to focus on that 40, 3 times 1 is 3. So that must mean that 3 times 10, because we're in the tens area, is 30. Remember, boys and girls, we were learning that if I'm multiplying by 10, I can add that 0. If I'm multiplying by 100, I could add 2 zeros. If I'm multiplying by 1,000, I could add those 3 zeros. So you don't necessarily need to know, oh, well, 3 times 200 gives me 600. All you need to know is that 3 times 2 gives you 6. And because we're talking about hundreds, we can add those 2 zeros. So right now we're here. 40, my next step is to subtract. 40 minus 30 is 10. I'm going to bring my 10 all the way over to my 3. 10 plus 3 gives me 13. 3 goes into 13. I know, let's count by threes. 3, 6, 9, 12 is as close to 13 as I'm going to get. So I know that 3 times 4 gives me 12. I subtract, and I have this 1 left over. Remember that if something left over is smaller than your number over here, it's called the remainder. Because I have nowhere else to put it. I'm already at my 1s. I can't bring it on over anywhere else. And so this is my remainder. It's smaller than the 3, and so it's a remainder of 1. So my answer is going to have a remainder of 1. And I'm not done yet, because I know that I have to add all of these together in order to get my answer. So 300 plus 200 plus 10 and 4. I know I have a 4 here, a 1 here. 3 plus 2 is 5. And again, I can't forget about my remainder of 1. So my answer is 514 with the remainder of 1. And that, boys and girls, is area model.